Stop! Stop! He's already dead.
Hello everyone, welcome to 2FAST2MOVIE. I'm your host Kenny, and with me is my co-host Matt Kime. And today we'll be covering episode 4 of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Quite an episode this week, huh, Matt? What are your thoughts going into this one?
We're starting to. I think I was actually right about John Walker using the serum in like an act of desperation.
Yep.
But holy hell, the last few minutes of this episode were brutal. You don't typically see violence like that in the MCU. Not that it was a bad thing. It was actually kind of refreshing to see, like, because this is a much more grounded series, so it was nice to see that. And so it's nice to see that we're starting to get to some of the payoffs. Yeah,
payoffs there were in this episode. A lot of plot happened, but yeah, the ending definitely, I'd almost say, kind of almost overshadows everything else that happened in the episode. But yeah, before we dive into that, please, if you like what you see, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. We upload new videos every week, and our friends are covering Invincible and My Hero Academia on their segments of 2FAST2MOVIE. So check that out after you watch this. And as always, spoilers ahead. So, episode 4, we start roughly right where we left off in the last episode. We start in a flashback with Io helping Bucky work through his, Winter Soldier mental block through that program, and an amazing performance by Sebastian Stan. And then we sort of jump back to the present day with Io giving Bucky at least 8 hours to do what he wants with Zemo before her and the rest of the Dora come in to take him. The trio, Bucky, Sam, and Zemo, continue their search for Carly, and once again they're joined by John and Lamar, much to their dismay, but they gotta work together. So they find Carly at Danya's funeral, and Sam decided to peacefully talk with Carly while the others hang back. The conversation was going really well until Walker rudely interrupted and escalated the situation. And in the scuffle, Zemo was able to escape and corner Carly and smash most of the super soldier serums, save for one, as John walks in to get a hold of. And then after another scuffle, when the Dora comes in, Zemo just sort of leaves. He just sort of backs out, just like, all right, I'm out of here.
All right, I'm gonna head out.
Yeah. Yeah, and John sort of has his moment of I'm not the biggest kid in the playground moment. And afterwards, Carly threatens Sam's sister, and Sam and Bucky go to confront her. And another fight breaks out between the gang and the Flag Smashers. John juices up and helps them with their fight, but in the skirmish, unfortunately, Lamar dies. And in his rage, John goes and decapitates a Flag Smasher in front of the public with their cell phones out. So, that happened. So, I was expecting, ever since John Walker was introduced, he's sort of like a ticking time bomb type thing. I honestly didn't know what I was expecting. But it surprised me with the whole thing. But yeah, where do you want to start with this, Matt?
John Walker, I've been saying it for a few episodes now that I think he's gonna maybe crack a little bit under the pressure of being Captain America, which isn't. It's always been an interesting dynamic with that character, because it's not something like he doesn't seem like he was in it for the vanity, at least not initially. But he sees himself as a soldier trying to do his job. But this episode, you get a little bit more depth in that he was given medals of honor, but the only thing he sees that they represent is that they represent people that he couldn't save. Because there's that conversation with him and Lamar saying, where they say, how many more people could we have saved had we used that serum? And he tries to gain the approval of the people who actually knew Captain America and the people who Captain America actually handpicked. He doesn't get it. And for the most part, it's not going well. And then I thought there was going to need to be one or two more things that would have pushed him over the edge in terms of using the serum, because there's that shot where Zemo smashes all but one of them, at least that we're aware of. And so he pockets that one, and I was like, I don't know that he's quite there yet. And then Lamar dies, and he goes berserk after that. So I think we've definitely crossed the Rubicon, as it were, with him.
Yeah. Hang on. You can edit this out. I just want to look up the actor's name again.
Wyatt Russell, I think is his name.
Wyatt Russell. Yeah. Okay.
And the other thing about it is that one of the running, I don't know that you could call it a theme, but more like a motif, is one of the running ideas is how the soldiers get treated after coming home from war, and everybody's hailing them as a big hero. But then with Bucky, he's psychologically damaged. Sam is having trouble supporting his family, and then John Walker is kind of being used as a PR stunt, because nobody takes him seriously anymore.
Yeah.
And it kind of reminds me of the movie Flags of Our Fathers, and I won't divert too much, but the movie is centered around the true story of the men who took the picture of raising the flag during the Battle of Iwo Jima in early 1945. The story behind it is that the people who were in that picture weren't the ones that actually initially raised the flag. The picture was a publicity stunt.
I see.
That they took like later that day. I mean, because the battle went on for another like month and a half after that picture was taken. And so they did it again later because it was such a famous pose. And then some of the men who did the second flag raising were pulled from the front lines and then went on basically USO tours, and they were used basically to sell war bonds to get the American public to buy into continuing to support the war effort. Because at that point, the war had been going on for about 4 or 5 years for the Americans, and they were thinking, outside of the war in Europe, a lot of people were saying, well, this isn't really going anywhere. Should we really even be doing this anymore? And so these people were kind of being hailed as heroes. Meanwhile, the movie is all about the dichotomy of these people being held up as heroes while they're all suffering from alcoholism, PTSD. One of the soldiers that was on this tour was a Native American who died drunk and homeless. And he's not allowed to drink at certain bars or go to certain restaurants. He gets treated different because he's Native American.
Right.
And so it kind of reminds me of how the heroes got treated as to how they were presented. And this show is very much kind of touching on those same ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I want to give kudos to Wyatt Russell for his portrayal of John Walker. I think he did a fantastic job with his portrayal, and the reason why I'm really pointing this out, fun, not so fun fact, Wyatt Russell has been receiving death threats for his portrayal of John Walker, because apparently people they really don't understand fiction and reality. So, but
you see that a lot with fan communities. Like,
yeah,
just look at how Ahmad Best or Jake Lloyd were treated from Star Wars, or Lena Headey or Jack Gleason, who played King Joffrey on Game of Thrones. I mean, hell, a few of the people that I mentioned have stopped acting entirely because of how they were treated.
Yeah, and with internet culture, it's unfortunately a thing. But yeah, with that ending scene of just him decapitating that flag smasher member,
that was violent. My God,
that was violent. They PG-13'd it, which is totally okay with me. I think it works, and it's definitely sort of a point of no return for John Walker.
I think that's why they showed it as being as violent as it was, because you see people get blown up and shot and dusted and like all kinds of people die in all manner of ways in this universe. Cities get blown up. But it's, for the most part, it's like, because it's Marvel, it's Disney, it's PG-13, it's all been very bloodless. Not to say that that's like a criticism I have of the MCU, because I don't want this to look like Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah.
But I like the limited use of harder violence here, because it shows just how far gone Walker is. So it's a good visual symbol, a good visual reinforcement that there is no coming back from this.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, speaking of like, other Marvel properties and stuff like that, with John Walker's character, it's easy, like, I hate this guy, fuck this guy, he's not Captain America. I mean, that's true. But I really do like how the show commits to the shades of gray, because like, in a comic book world like Marvel, where like, usually good and evil, black and white is, clearly defined most of the time, and some other properties, do sort of delve into that but don't commit fully towards the end.
This show is doing this in spades, and that's kind of like one of the spy thriller, like Bourne movie influence on this series a little bit. You see that a little bit here, and so it's one of the more refreshing things about this series, is that there's very defined protagonists and antagonists, but the protagonists break Zemo out of jail, and now he's going to be a huge problem for everybody. Yeah. We don't quite know how, but he's not going away quietly. And now they're at odds with the Wakandans, and then John Walker is understandably pissed about them letting Zemo out of jail and basically getting in his way when he's trying to do his job. And then he goes and murders someone on live internet TV. You get the idea. And then there's even there's that idea being played with Carly and the Flag Smashers. Although my criticism is that I think the show wants to have its cake with them and eat it too a little bit, as far as the villains with sympathetic motivations go. I mean, to be fair, we don't know what their end game quite is, but then she basically blackmails Sam into talking to her by calling his sister and threatening her and her children. And then she says, "Oh no, I was never going to hurt them." It's like, you just set
for the
fire
cause.
to a building. You set fire to a building in the last episode where people were still in it. So actions, words,
it's hey, it's for the greater good, So yeah,
I do like that she was able to elaborate on her motivations a little bit in this episode too.
Yeah.
So like, I almost feel like shades of gray and the sympathetic villain thing is getting like a little overplayed by this point, but the show is executing those ideas very, very well.
Yeah, I would agree. Another theme that the show has in terms of its characters and like, what it wants to talk about, do the ends justify the means? And, we see each character sort of like, deal with that, Bucky, breaking out Zemo to sort of, solve this whole Flag Smasher issue. Carly doing what she's doing. Murdering people and stuff for the greater good, and John Walker taking the serum to live up to the Captain America name, and I feel like it works for everybody else. Again, we don't know what's going on with the Flag Smashers, but I think one of the best scenes with the Flag Smashers or Carly is Sam and Carly's conversation together, where John Walker was really quick to take action. He's just like, oh no, we're going in there, we're arresting them, and Sam was like, wait, hold up, let's try to talk.
I was so disappointed. Like I knew he was gonna like rush in and fuck it up for everybody, basically.
Oh yeah.
But I wanted to see more of that conversation because it was a compelling part of the episode.
Yeah, we're in episode 4. Of course, it's gonna have to fall apart, you know. So,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I think that their conversation was really compelling. I just wish we saw more of it until, like, you know, of course, John Walker's gonna ham it up and just sort of ruin it.
Well, because he even does that the second time they try to talk.
Yeah,
And that's what causes that enormous fight.
yeah, yeah. With John and Lamar, that whole scene where they were sort of sitting together and just, you know, you know, the sort of moment like, oh hey, we're best buddies, right? And nothing is going to happen to me, John. I have my, like, you know, you love doing those autographs. Well, I got a logo right here, and you know, we're best buddies. And
He might as well have pulled out a picture of his wife and kids and talked about his impending retirement.
yeah, absolutely. When I saw that scene, I was like, he's dead. He's dead. He's absolutely dead. Yeah, you know, again, going back to, like, you know, the whole Shades of Grey thing, you know, with John, I did like how John was sort of looking, like, you know, almost not directly, but like asking permission to, you know, use that serum instead of, like, he could have just, you know, juiced up immediately when he got it. But I really liked that scene where, like, you know, it's just like, hey, like, you know, if you had the chance to take the serum, would you? And it's like, hell yeah, absolutely. I think that, like, you know, power doesn't make someone bad. Power just, you know, shows people who they really are. And, like, you know, Steve Rogers and Carly and whatnot. And yeah, and that was definitely the setup. And I'm like, okay, something horrible is going to happen towards the end. And I think the payoff was quite dramatic. And I do love the imagery of the shield sort of stained with blood at the end.
And then it harkens back to the supremacist idea that Zemo brings up. Because Zemo philosophically is, like, his motivations are still perfectly in line with what had been happening in Civil War. Although sometimes with the way he acts and talks, it does feel like we're watching two different people between his Civil War appearance and this appearance. But it's like, that bothers some people. It doesn't really bother me. But he mentions that the super soldier idea is rooted in supremacist, like, kind of that Ubermensch idea. God, I hope I pronounced that right. And so that's what he's against, is people who see themselves as gods. Now you can debate him passing judgment on other people like that and whatnot, but that's his point of view. And then Sam says, well, what about Steve Rogers? And he just shrugs and says, touche.
He goes touche, but, like, you know, but he sort of goes, yeah, has there ever been another Steve Rogers?
But I also think it's going to this idea that that's partially what you have to do to be able to live up to Steve Rogers as Captain America, is that kind of ideal. It can't be done out of, it's like using the Force. You can't do it for self-serving reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you know, with Zemo, I really do enjoy him a lot in this show. He does feel slightly different from Civil War, but, you know, I argue that, you know, in Civil War he was just getting over a tragedy, I guess. But now he's just sort of, I don't know, he let loose a little more, and sort of I'm still getting, like, you know, the creepy Zemo vibe, especially with him and the Turkish delights with the kids. Yeah, the classic.
Oh, that was clever.
Yeah, it was the classic. Oh, hey kids, I got some candy here. Want to get into my van?
Well, it's the same plot device from Lion Witch and the Wardrobe.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Oh man. But yeah, no, I love Zemo, and especially fucking Marvel released the Zemo cut of the full length dancing sequence, because Twitter was just like, give us the Zemo cut, and then They absolutely gave it to us. So anyway, I'm pleased with Zemo. Memes and all, I don't care. I'm just having fun with him, and I think he definitely keeps keeps the interest going.
Well, especially because
in my opinion.
he has a couple of scenes where he just slips away, and to quote Sam, he pulls an El Chapo. So we ain't seen the last of him yet. And I'm curious
absolutely
to see
not.
what his end game this time around is, because it looked like he almost accomplished it, and then Walker gets the last serum.
Yeah, absolutely. I do. Yeah, speaking of Zemo, once again, great moments. That scene where the Dora come in and sort of beat on John Walker. Everybody was just like standing there, just sipping, just like, should we do something?
It reminds me of Willy Wonka, like calling out to the kid eating the chocolate river, and he goes, "No, don't do that. Oh no!" just that very like blasé reaction, almost like they were all almost like, "Oh no, what a shame!
Oh, what a shame.
That's too bad."
Yeah.
And I think they only intervene when it looks like they're about to get killed.
Yeah,
by the
just
Wakandans.
just like, okay, all right, fine, we'll step in. So with U.S. Agent, or Captain America, as everybody knows him currently. How do you think PR is going to handle this?
That's one of the more interesting things about going forward about the what I'm curious about, because one of the ideas in WandaVision, going back to that show for a moment, is that not everybody is totally in love with superheroes running around amok. And WandaVision is probably like I'd be stunned, especially because they're going to be introducing the X-Men at some point in the near future. They're going to start to have public opinion kind of turn against people with superpowers, and this is going to be somewhere along that sliding scale where it's not like Walker has superpowers, but it's just what Captain America is, what he represents.
Yeah. John Walker. Though, well, now he does have superpowers, and I'm sure.
Well, especially because I think that he might have to start going rogue soon, because I can't imagine that his superiors, like the people who are holding up Captain America as like this good old wholesome American hero, basically.
Yeah.
There's no way that shit's gonna fly with whomever his superiors are. So it wouldn't shock me if he starts going rogue.
Yeah.
Over the next couple of episodes.
Yeah, absolutely. In the comics, do you mind if I,
Not at all.
It might spoil what's to come. Maybe, I don't know, but so in the comics, John Walker was Captain America, but he sort of went rogue, and he fakes his death, and he becomes U.S. Agent, and Steve Rogers comes back as Captain America, and he becomes U.S. Agent, and what U.S. Agent is sort of secret soldier, CSI type guy that still works for the government, but for shadier operations. And he joins a group called the Thunderbolts, and he leads the Thunderbolts, which is sort of like a Spec Ops Avengers type group of people, and they're led by Theodus Thunderbolt Ross, General Ross from The Incredible Hulk and Civil War. So
I might see him come back.
Yeah, so I can definitely see maybe towards the end, and instead of Nick Fury coming in, the Avengers Initiative, and just want to join the Thunderbolts,
So you think that Walker we might not be seeing the last of him after this
Oh
series,
no, I think it would be an absolute waste if they don't continue to use Walker in the future, because there's definitely potential for him to come back as an anti-hero or maybe another antagonist type role. And yeah, I want to see more of him, and I think it would be very wasteful to sort of brush him off after this show. That's just my thoughts on that. I would love to see a Thunderbolts show, or
because even in like WandaVision, Agatha wasn't killed; she was just
Yeah.
kind of stashed somewhere, and so that's very obviously like we don't know if we're going to be bringing her back, but we want to have her around just in case.
Yeah, exactly. So I can definitely see them doing something like that with Walker, sort of stashing him away somewhere. Like maybe he dies, and then like we get an after credits scene in the final episode where Thunderbolt Ross comes in and just like yeah, he's good. I want him. They should definitely keep him around because I always love as overused as these types of characters are, like the sort of like similar imagery of our hero, but sort of the reverse of them, like Reverse Flash or characters like that.
I think it's a little bit different this time, and that was like one of my criticisms against the MCU for a long time, is that damn near every villain for a long time was just kind of like a dark mirror of whomever the protagonist was. So in in every single solo Iron Man movie, the main villain is an industrialist who's trying to basically do what Tony Stark is doing, right? Which is the downside of having all that wealth and power and money if you don't use it correctly, and that's what it's supposed to show. Black Panther has Killmonger, who's basically an evil Black Panther. And shows what happens when you take that ideology too far. But this time, it doesn't feel quite the same way because Steve Rogers isn't fighting him. I think if Steve Rogers was to be the one doing the fighting, I'd have more of an issue with it. But because they're more fighting over the legacy and what that legacy means and whether or not that legacy should even be inherited at all, I like it because it's more thematically poignant.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost, the more I think about it, it's almost reminiscent of like after the death of Superman, comic series, the reign of the Superman.
No, exactly.
Yeah, it's pretty much these Superman type characters sort of fighting over what being Superman is, and this definitely is very reminiscent of that. And if anything, I think the show is really pushing that Sam would be a great successor to Captain America. His compassion and willingness to listen to the other side, and not taking violence as the first step. And again, this show is sort of showing that journey of like Sam going, I don't think I'm worthy of the shield, because if I take up the shield, the idea of Captain America changes, and I would be the new face of that, and I don't know if people are ready to accept that, and because everybody has this idea of Captain America, the strong white guy, hometown hero type person,
the face of America.
Yeah, the face of America, and John Walker looks similar to Steve Rogers in a way, and not similar upbringings, but hometown hero, and so
he was the high school quarterback. He was on Good Morning America. He has the girlfriend. He has the best friend.
Yeah, exactly.
He has the Medals of Honor. The dude has it made on the face value of it.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what people when they think Captain America, that's what they think of, and of course they want to shove that Captain America has to stay like this, and it's showing that the ideals of what America is, and it has to change, because if it doesn't, this is what happens. And I really like that dichotomy of what they're doing with what they're trying to say about Captain America's legacy. If they don't change, if they're trying to force this idea that of what Captain America is should stay the same, it's just outdated. And we hear the Flag Smashers saying that shield is outdated. It doesn't represent now anymore. It good and evil, or right and wrong used to be so easier to identify, but now it's just not. And the idea of Captain America needs to change, and that's why Sam needs to step up as a new Captain America. I think that's what they're going for.
I think I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, and speaking of things have changed. We sort of don't know what the end goal for the Flag Smashers are, but we can sort of tell that the life during the blip, that where when things were very chaotic and people were lost, people sort of came together as a group, not through because of borders and countries and whatever, but just one people, and that's sort of what they were fighting for. Wouldn't you think it'd be interesting if we sort of saw more of that instead of the aftermath of it?
I would like to see. I would like to know a little bit more what the Flag Smashers' actual end game is, because the whole idea of this gray morality, do the ends justify the means? I would like to know what the ends are for them. Do they want to topple governments? Are they anarchists? Are they fighting for civil liberties and rights for people? Are they trying to do what Thanos did, except more manually than just snapping? Like what exactly is their end goal? I would like to know more about that. But one of the more interesting little blink and you'll miss it scenes is when Zemo and Sam are trying to find out where this funeral is, and Sam just starts going and basically interrogating people almost as if he were a cop or something, and everybody just doesn't trust him because 1, he's an American, 2, he's an Avenger. And he makes a mention about refugees, and then one of the men he's talking to says, "No, we don't see ourselves as refugees. We're displaced persons. We had a home, and we were kicked out of it after the blip." So that's how a lot of these people see themselves, is that... and so that dichotomy was a very, very interesting one to me to develop. And meanwhile, you have Zemo connecting. Well, he bribes people, but he found a better way to connect with people. And that's why he got the information in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a lot happened in this episode, and just I'm really liking the sort of the halfway point we're at, and I'm very curious to see how it ends, and I'm hoping to see what the sort of end goal of the Flag Smashers are. So overall, I'm assuming you enjoyed this episode.
Oh yeah. I think I don't know, I've been kind of burned out with superheroes for a little while, especially because when we started covering them for Return of the Movie, go watch it. It's on Spotify and all the podcasts, by the way.
Yep.
I was actually in the middle of an MCU watch through, so I watched everything, and I mean damn near everything outside of the Netflix shows, because that's kind of those are kind of their own thing. But and so I just kind of got burned out after a while. But the more the show sits in for me, the better it gets, because it's doing something fairly different. And that's kind of what I've always liked about some of the better, especially the Captain America series. And I'd say this is a continuation of that more than anything else, is that it's pushing the boundaries in ways that you don't typically see in superhero films. And so I very much appreciate that. So another good episode. Can't wait to see it next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, stories like this show you definitely would not see in an MCU movie. Even if so, I think it wouldn't be as deep as it's going right now. I'm really happy that they're committing to their vision and what they're trying to say with Captain America and with these characters. And as much as I'd love to keep watching forever, I do like that they're keeping the story short and sweet. And this episode is definitely a very strong one, especially the ending. Very, very striking, and definitely an image that will stick with me for quite a bit.
Oh my lord, yeah.
Yeah, the bloodstained shield. I can I can definitely sort of tell that, in the next episode, Bucky and Sam are just like, all right, we're gonna take that back, thank you. But yeah, I'm super excited to see where John Walker's descent continues, and I really hope that they keep this character around because he's very interesting, very punchable, but very interesting. So
Yeah.
My favorite kinds of characters. I'm a sucker for these unlikable characters, but you can understand where they're coming from. I'm a sucker for them. Yeah, very excited. I can't wait for next Friday. Yeah. So yeah, thank you as always, guys, for tuning in. You can see more 2FAST2MOVIE on our channel here. Our friends will be covering other incredible shows like Invincible and My Hero Academia. I'm enjoying Invincible very much, so please check that out. And you can also find our podcasts like Return to the Movie on most places you find podcasts like Spotify and Amazon Music. Yeah, thank you guys for watching, and as always, it's 2FAST2MOVIE.